Hello, Humane Marketers. Sarah Znekrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number one and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Hey, Lou, so glad to see you again and get a chance to talk shop with you about video. And of course, in the off recording, we talked about Sicily because we have a common love for everything Italy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you're one of the online folks that I've actually met in real life. So
That's
pretty
right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is always, it's such an exception. And so it's
hmm
just, something special.
Yep.
I was part of your, what do you call it, mastermind or
Yeah. When we went
retreat or,
to
yeah.
Tuscany and
hmm
yeah, then we had the few years of the little interruption of the pandemic and all that, but hopefully that's all behind us.
Yeah. Yeah. That was amazing. Loved it.
hmm
Cool. So I have
Yeah.
you today to talk about video, and
hmm
we were just discussing, well, maybe we're going to call it video like we're human or YouTube like we're human or something like that. And
Yeah.
then you shared that you just kind of focus a lot on the trust and
hmm
authenticity. And so we'll definitely get into that. So
Cool.
really looking forward to it. Why
Thanks.
don't you start by sharing how you got into video, how you, you're
Yes.
calling yourself the godfather of video. So tell
So
us
yeah,
about
the
that.
long and circuitous route to, and it's funny because I think people call me that because they know of my love of Italy and Sicily and The Godfather, but all, really because I've been doing it for a really long time. So I was in the television business for many years in Los Angeles, and I think it was probably around 2000 or 1998 that I really got online and started to do things online. And when our twins were born, we decided, well, let's leave, Hollywood and La La Land and go back to family in Boston. And that's kind of when I started doing the online video stuff, which was fun because the way I discovered YouTube is that I was helping some people do a sketch comedy show for like a local cable access. And we started to put the videos on YouTube and really get a lot of attention there. We realized, oh, this, we were kind of onto something. So I was on from the very early, back in 2005 when YouTube started. And I've been doing online video ever since. And I love it because I'm an introvert and I don't have to be in person necessarily with people. And even though I don't love being on camera, for me, it's a lot easier than in-person networking. And I just love the fact that we can do this and sort of have our own TV station, our own podcast. I mean, 10, 20 years ago, this would have been impossible. So
Yeah, it's
that's how
just
I got here.
amazing. That's insane. It's like mind blowing that, 2005, that it really seems like ages and
I
ages ago.
know.
And that's
Yeah.
when it came
So
out.
so I guess that's what, 18 years? Oh my gosh, I feel so
Yeah,
old.
it really is a long time ago. And of
Yeah.
course, it went through phases of ups and
hmm
downs. And it seems like right now it really is kind of like coming back. And
Yeah.
I want to know from you, why do you think that it has this comeback now?
hmm
What
Yeah,
are
it's
the
interesting. And
reasons?
it's the same with, remember podcasting sort of cooled off for a while and now it's harder
Mhm.
than ever. I think part of it is that, um, when I was growing up or when we were growing up, there were just a few TV stations and a few options. And now with YouTube and podcasts and streaming, we've got access to basically a worldwide audience every time we turn on our computer or put our phone on. So I think that's part of it is just the accessibility and also the fact that folks who maybe are a little younger than us grew up with, they never didn't, they always had internet, they always had YouTube, they always had streaming and all this kind of stuff. So for them, a screen is a screen is a screen. They don't care if it's TV, they don't care if it's cable, they don't care if it's YouTube, whatever they're watching, they can watch anything, anytime. And that's why, another crazy statistic is that YouTube has more viewers than all the US TV networks, all the cable networks, all the streaming services. So when you think of TV, you don't usually think of YouTube, but YouTube is TV and TV is YouTube.
I mean, if we think of our kids, right, that's all they're watching. They're not watching
Yeah.
TV. And that
Right.
it's
And they,
definitely the YouTube generation.
multi screens, they're watching YouTube on a traditional television screen, but they're on Twitter or X at the same time with their friends. And
Right.
I don't know how they do it. I can barely manage one screen, let alone three.
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel that we were also kind of part of the blogging
Hmm.
era. And so
Yeah.
I feel like Google has changed their algorithm again, and people are
Yeah.
like, well, people don't really read blogs anymore, and we can't get any
Hmm.
traction with SEO now
Yeah.
that the market is getting flooded with all the AI content.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so maybe it's also, do you think it's also because of that people are like, well, at least that's what it was
Yeah.
for me. I'm like, I gotta pay attention to YouTube again.
Absolutely. And then the other thing with business owners, I mean, we always read video is the way to get the most amount of information in the shortest amount of time. So if we're all multitasking, we're all really overscheduled, we're all really busy, oftentimes it's like, I can't sit down and read a newspaper. What's that? I have to, go to YouTube and find this quick answer. I have to go to see this thing on TikTok or, so it's really just a great way to get access to any information anywhere in the world.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love it, especially when it's time stamped. So it's like,
Hmm.
oh, I don't even have to watch the whole thing. It's just like
Yeah,
this tiny bit.
exactly.
So yeah.
So I think now the thing is that the consumer, the viewer, it has more control than ever. Because like I said, when we were, at least in the US, when we were growing up, it's like you had three TV networks and they controlled everything. They controlled what you saw, what you heard. And now it's kind of like, well, the consumer can go anywhere they want and see anything they want. So they're completely in control now.
Hmm. So that kind of, probably, if someone has never done any video, kind of sounds also intimidating, because it's like,
Hmm.
wow, like there's this giant audience out there. Okay, you already mentioned, as an introvert, sometimes YouTube is actually probably easier than the networking thing. But maybe it also feels like, well, what am I going to share that hasn't already been said out there?
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
would you say to that
I
question?
think, everybody has their unique spin and everybody has their own, perspective. So it's like you have something to offer. A lot of times, if I'm working with my clients or students, they feel like, well, like you said, well, what can I say that hasn't already been said? And I tell them, look, you have a message, you have a unique message, you have a unique way of doing things. And your passion to get that message out to the world has to be stronger than your fear of being on camera. Because again, the other thing too is now that we're all able to be on camera, we're not walking the red carpet at the Oscars. We're just putting on a podcast or a YouTube channel and showing up and trying to be authentic.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this trust building and authenticity,
Hmm.
right? Like, what are some key points here that,
Hmm.
like, maybe a story I can tell is, like, I remember when I put up my first video, and I just seen them all because I cleaned up my YouTube channel, and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. But I
Yeah.
remember, like, really sweating it, like, oh my God, I have to prepare everything. And
Yeah.
so, like, do we really need to have this perfect video?
Hmm.
Or how much of it can we just wing and really be just human and
Yeah.
authentic?
I think you can wing 80% of it probably. I mean, I often make the distinction between quick videos and keeper videos. It's like, okay, a keeper video, your homepage video on your website, you don't want to be in your pajamas probably. If it's an important video that's going to have shelf life, like your homepage video, or if you're selling, $1,000 coaching program, you want to look professional. So those keeper videos, you probably want to spend more time and effort on. But if it's, quick tips, I mean, oftentimes I just think of something and then just go to YouTube and share it. So quick tips or Facebook Lives or any kind of live video. It's really more about, just showing up and sharing your message and being authentic. And a lot of times people think video is about the technology, and what I try to sort of, reshape that or respin it as no, it's really about connection and relationships and engagement. It doesn't matter what technology we're using, it just matters that we're connecting and being authentic and sharing ourselves.
Yeah, I remember we did a workshop together or something about
Hmm.
video for introverts
Oh
back in
yeah. Hmm.
back in the days, and I remember we did kind of have one module on technology,
Hmm.
and I'm thinking maybe that actually lost a bit of importance now that we're so used to these shorts
Yeah.
on YouTube and even famous people just kind of like filming
Mhm.
themselves. You think it has changed maybe also over time?
Yeah, and I think the pandemics accelerated it really quickly because, basically in, a day, we all had to move to Zoom and we had to move our events to Zoom and we had to move everything online. So I think that just accelerated it. And, it was almost like, well, I don't have a choice. I have to be on camera because that's the only way I can connect with my audience right now.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the other thing was now people realize, oh, this isn't that scary and this isn't that difficult technically. And we always hear about know, like, and trust. And I think people finally realize, like, wow, this is a great way to build know, like, and trust.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm
So,
always surprised that people are watching whole episodes,
mhm.
that I put on the podcast as well. But no, people actually watch the YouTube version of it as well. And probably it's because that know, like, and trust, right? Uh,
Yeah, definitely. The connection, the ability to watch it on the go because people are watching on their phones. And I did, I've done podcasting off and on, but the reason that I finally committed to doing a podcast was I saw a statistic that YouTube was now the number one source for podcasts, more than Apple, more than Google, more than Amazon. People are going to YouTube for podcasts, and whether that's just kind of listening to it when, with a slide on the screen or having an actual interview or seeing the person on screen. Either way, it's become, kind of the go-to place to see and hear podcasts.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did see a difference between just having that slide and the moving,
Hmm.
lines,
Yeah,
which I did before, so I didn't
yeah.
have the video portion of
Hmm.
it. And now with the actual faces, like there is more engagement or there is
Yeah,
more
definitely.
views because yeah, obviously it's more interesting to see two people talking than just a line. Um,
Yeah, and that's the other thing that's been interesting too is now with all the AI stuff, it's like I think there's going to be not really a backlash with AI, but more of a need for like, okay, I don't want to see a robotic, synthesized video. I mean, yeah, I can create an AI version of myself that's like, hi, I'm Lou, and recreate my voice, but it's still not you, it's still not the real person.
Yeah, and I really feel like that's why I like the really human and authentic videos the best,
Hmm.
where you see some people, they have like this fancy background and their
Hmm.
logo is up there and their
Yeah.
book is up there. I'm like, I get that from a marketing perspective, but
Hmm.
it doesn't feel real. It feels like if
Yeah.
I would see you on the street, I probably wouldn't recognize you because you're wearing so much makeup and
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really recognize you. So
Hmm.
for me, it's really that real humanness that comes
Hmm.
across.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's why I like, I don't do as much live video as I should, but I kind of call it like, oh, a live video is a come as you are party, just show up and be yourself and don't worry that the dogs are barking in the background because that's the way it works. It's like there's going to be distractions, there's going to be craziness going on in the background, but that just makes it more real.
Talking about that, I just watched, remember that BBC interview where
Yeah,
the kid
yeah.
walks in and then the baby rolls in and then
Hmm.
I just
I mean,
watched that
we've
again
seen,
yesterday. I
those
had such
sometimes
a
those
good
are
laugh.
viral moments, like,
Yeah.
the wife's on trying to do a professional interview, and the guy walks, husband walks behind her in his boxer shorts. It's
Oh
like
God.
we're
Yeah.
trying to do video here, people. So
And what I didn't remember is that that was in 2017, so way
Wow.
pre-COVID. So that's why
Yeah.
it was like super shocking. Back then we were all still like, "Ooh,
Yep.
this is,
Yep.
has to
I
be
know.
super professional." So I feel
Yeah.
like a lot has changed since the
Hmm.
pandemic,
Yeah,
in
and
terms of the
again,
humanness.
you have to find that balance because like I kid like you don't want to look like a hostage video. I mean, you don't want to have really terrible lighting and yeah, that it may be authentic, but it's still not easy to watch. Like if the lighting's really bad or if the
Yeah,
audio's bad. So you
yeah.
have to find that balance between like, look, I have to, look relatively professional, but I don't have to be so polished that I'm on doing an interview on CNN or something.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's that balance that you're still human and creating trust, uh,
Hmm.
but without looking like, yeah, you're just going on CNN. So
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about AI. What I just recently started using is this tool called Opus Clip or something.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yep. Hmm.
Opus Clip.
Yep.
And it lets you create these little shorts from
Hmm.
longer videos, right? And I love that because it's repurposing
Yeah,
existing
exactly.
content.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, do you know any other great
Yeah.
AI
I mean,
tools that
I
people are
did
using?
a series on some AI tools, and Opus Clip was one of them, which is
Mm,
great because if you're going to create content, you might as well get as much mileage out of it as possible. So if you're doing a podcast and you wanted to do clips from the podcast or you want to do 60-second segments, Opus Clip is great for that. Pictory.ai is really good because you can, make your videos more professional and edit them and add, B-roll and background footage. And the one
mm,
that I use probably every single day is descript.com.
yes.
And the reason I like that is because for people who are not, video editors, you can edit the text and all those changes are made. You're basically editing a Word document and then the changes transfer to the video. So I've been using that for to produce podcasts and really every kind of video because it's really faster and you can look more professional more quickly.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you could just highlight all the ums and take
Hmm.
them all out.
Yeah, I had no idea how many times I used the words and ah until I found a descript like, oh, I can take out all the filler words with one click,
Yeah,
and suddenly I sound smarter than I am. So,
exactly.
and I don't think that damages any of the authenticity or makes it any less real. It's just that like, oh, it's going to be a little bit easier to look more professional without having to go through all kinds of crazy editing and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't feel like all of a sudden you sound like a robot. You just
Hmm.
feel like, yeah, you sound smarter because you're not constantly
Yeah.
looking for words or yeah, saying
Hmm.
the
Yeah, and some of it's getting like it's a little bit weird because there's a feature in Descript where if I'm looking at the screen, it will put your eyes back up to where the camera is.
oh, I
So
haven't seen that. Ooh,
it's
that's
kind of,
creepy. Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. It's a little creepy, but it works pretty well. But again, it's about striking that balance. Like I could do videos where I say, you sort of insert the name like you do one video, hello, Sarah. It's like, well, obviously that's, you know, automated. So you don't want to do so much automation that it's not, real anymore.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's a question that you get often is like, well, where should your eyes be when,
Hmm.
you're doing either self-recorded videos or
Yeah.
chats like this one? For
Mm.
example, me right now, I'm looking at the camera, I'm not looking at you,
Yeah.
which I always
I
feel
know
like,
it's
oh,
it's
what a
tricky.
shame,
Yeah, you gotta
But
sort of train your eyes. I'm like, oh, my mom said you have to look people in the eye, and like, well, that's
exactly.
great, but the camera's eye is up here.
Right.
So I cheat because I have like a little extra monitor up where the camera is. But if I was looking at the
Yeah.
screen, it would feel like I wasn't connecting with you and I wasn't being as authentic because I'm not,
Right.
you want to try to, the camera is the other person's eyes, so that's the tricky part.
Yeah, yeah. What I do is this because I'm recording on Zoom, so I just make the screen of Zoom very small and just shove
Yeah.
it right under the
Oh, yeah,
camera there.
yeah, I know. So those
Yeah.
kind of tricks of just, try to look at the camera, try to have, adequate lighting. But again, it doesn't take much. I like to have a setup where I can just say, okay, my camera's set up, my background's okay, my lights work, and I want to just be able to go. I don't want to have to spend 20 minutes setting up a video every time I do a video.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes kind of like a nuisance if
Hmm.
it feels like, oh, I have to do all this setting up. What
Yeah,
about what about in terms of the body placement? Because one thing
yeah,
I noticed is when I put the things on TikTok compared to everybody else, my face was like giant. I'm like, oh God, this is like
yeah. And that's the
my
thing.
son is like,
You have
this is
to
no good.
you have
Yeah.
to consider where the person's watching from, and a lot of people are watching on their phone, especially if it's a vertical video. So oftentimes, if I'm doing a webinar and I'm sharing slides that are landscape, I realize, well, I can't put this on TikTok or Instagram Reels because it's going to squish it.
Right.
But like again, using software like Descript, we can take a video like this and put, the people vertically so that it still works. So what I do see a lot, and it's funny because I did another video about this, is that just people don't have a very good sense of the spatial awareness. Like they'll be way down here, like hello.
Mm.
And the trick that I heard that works is that, think in terms of like you don't want any more headroom than you could fit a golf ball on the top of your head.
Mhm.
So, you don't want to be too close, you don't want to be too far away.
Right.
Um, so
And what
it's like,
about here, like up till
yeah, Head and
here
Shoulders is kind
or
of like, I think, we're used to seeing that from news anchors and TV. It's usually like, the typical shot is a Head and Shoulders kind of shot. But
yeah,
again, if there are people doing videos who are yoga instructors or something like that, they got to go way back and be able
of
to see the
course.
whole frame.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's really just a matter of being aware of where you are in the camera. Oftentimes we'll see on Zoom, maybe somebody's on a laptop and they're looking up and you're looking up their nose. It's like, that's no fun. Just
Hmm.
try to have a straight on, and use the photography rule of thirds where your eyes should be on the top third of the line. And if you've got graphics, those should be on the lower third, which is why they call lower thirds. So it's just having a sort of a spatial awareness of where you are and what's going on screen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it also comes back to confidence and just
Hmm.
doing it a few times and
Yeah,
not caring if it doesn't look good and
yeah,
just keep doing it. Right.
yeah. So it's funny when we do, like we did the video for introverts thing a few years ago, but when I do these challenges, I say, I do my first video in the car after I just came from the gym. So it's like,
I
okay,
remember
this is the
that. Yeah.
worst I'm gonna look. Okay, I'm gonna set the bar really low so it can only get better. I'm in the car, the lighting's bad, I'm sweaty, but okay, I'm gonna start there and then work my way towards better videos as I go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I remember those videos after kickboxing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah. I don't
I'm
know
gonna
if I would
set
dare
the bar
that,
low.
but
Yeah. Well, and then I think, women have a harder time because of the expectations, like, oh, my hair has to look good and I have to be wearing the right whatever. But I think people are less concerned about that now than they used to be,
I think so
just
too. And
because
it's
of,
so refreshing. Yeah.
yeah, because we just show up on Zoom and it's like, look, I just came back from the gym or I've been doing
Yeah.
this or that. So it's really more about you really have to focus on the message and not so much the quality is important, but it's less important than your message and what you're
You know
delivering.
what that makes me think of is it's funny that we haven't kind of changed our headshots yet
Yeah,
to being more
right.
human because
Hmm.
sometimes you go on somebody's website and it's this beautiful, like
Yeah,
once in a lifetime that they look like that. And
yeah.
then you see their YouTube videos and you're like, oh, they're
I
actually
know. So
human, right?
I did our photos when we were in Italy. I'm like, oh, I want to have my pictures with really old buildings in the background and things like that.
Right.
Um, and then when people show up, they're like, oh, you don't look like you look on screen. So
Yeah.
I used to do a really silly trick back in the Photoshop days. Is I would make my image actually a little wider so that I'd look heavier. And then when I showed up in person, people would say, oh, have you
You
lost weight?
lost weight. That's a great
So I
trick.
was doing that reverse Photoshop, like, well, I want to look better in person, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
again, it is all about that authenticity and connection, and I talk about building loyalty through video because again, it's really more about a relationship than about what camera you're using.
Yeah, it really feels like it's I explain it in levels of intimacy, right? And
Hmm.
so people sign up to your newsletter, that they get your
Yeah,
emails. That's the kind of the low level, or before that, it's even social media, right? And then
yeah.
there's a higher level is newsletter, and even higher level that level there will be YouTube or any
Hmm.
kind of video, and then
Yeah.
probably Zoom calls where it's like in-person Zoom calls, and then the
Hmm.
actual in-person meeting. But
Yeah.
I do
Hmm.
feel already, we're seeing each other's facial expressions, and
Yeah.
yeah, that creates trust and loyalty. I totally
Hmm.
agree.
Yeah, and again, even though thank goodness we're past the pandemic and live events are coming back and conferences are back, there's still going to be that hybrid events, people working from home much more than they used to. I mean, my kids who are 25, they have never worked in an office.
Yeah.
Everything they've done is on screen, on Zoom, on Google Meet, whatever it is. That's just the way they work now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is
No,
crazy. So
it's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah, it really is. So let us talk a little bit to wrap up around the future of
Hmm.
video. So we
Yeah.
mentioned AI, we mentioned that Google is not really easy anymore to have your blog posts featured. So
Yeah.
what do you see the future of video? How do you see it
Hmm.
evolve?
I think it's, obviously there's going to be a lot more volume because people are going to continue to flock to YouTube and watch YouTube shorts. I think we're going to see, shorter bursts of videos like TikTok and Instagram Reels are going to continue. And it's a little harder to make the connection there because you're on for a shorter amount of time. But I think we're going to see the shorter videos promoting podcasts and longer content where you really can connect. Because again, you're obviously going to make a better connection with somebody if you're seeing or hearing them for 15, 20 minutes rather than 45 seconds. And I think the other thing is that there may be a little bit of a, not really a backlash, but sort of an anti-AI thing, like, okay, I've seen the robotic, synthetic version of Lou, but where's the real, I'm going to show up on Facebook Live and not be perfect but be real.
Mhm.
So I think you'll start to see a little bit more of, as much as we're going to be using AI, it's still not going to, literally replace the person and their message.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm all for AI, but exactly, it's still, in a way, it makes the videos that we're doing even more special and more
Hmm.
human. So maybe that's also a good
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So yeah, because that's it's almost like if you send out an email blast, it's not very personal. If you send out an AI video, it's great, but it's not, as personal or familiar or engaging. And even now that ChatGPT is starting to put in, I think it's called Sora, where you can put in a prompt and ChatGPT will create a video from
I
nothing,
saw that. Yeah.
which is great, but it's still not you.
Right.
So I don't
So
think
so
it's gonna.
what does it do? It creates an avatar of you or
I
just
think it would,
random?
if you say create a video about a trip to Boston, Mass, it's going to pull in footage from Boston and scenes and sights. And I think, eventually if you record yourself, it'll be able to do sort of a facsimile of you, but it's still not going to be the real you. So
Yeah,
as
some
much as all that stuff is great,
interesting things coming our way, that's for sure.
yeah, it's crazy. So I think that there's still going to be a place, a really important place for those videos. If I do a lot of video email, where I just sort of, rather than sending an email, I do a video on Loom and share something. And I think again, that's more personal. Yeah, it takes a little bit more time, but I think it also has a lot more impact because you feel like, oh wow, this person's actually talking to me. It's not going to 1,000 people.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love those videos. I remember them from the trip in Tuscany.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about so much, and maybe it's something that we don't need to worry about,
Hmm.
is the whole algorithm thing, because
Yeah.
obviously we're replacing the Google algorithm by a YouTube algorithm. So
Hmm.
how much are you paying attention and telling your clients to pay attention to the
Yeah.
algorithm and making sure it gets,
Hmm.
views and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, as long as I've been on YouTube since the very beginning, and it's constantly changing, and it's hard to keep up with. And I actually work with a YouTube coach just to try to stay on top of it. And
I
he
bet.
keeps telling me the same thing, and I've heard it over and over. And I think it's the best idea is make videos for humans, not algorithm. Don't try to game the system. Don't do keyword stuffing. I mean, I was talking to him about keywords and tags, and he's like, just don't worry about it. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Oh,
Just
really?
make,
Wow.
know who your audience is and try to connect with them and give them what they expect from you, what they want from you. And don't say, oh, I'm going to make a knitting video because knitting is really hot. This is like, well, that's not what I do. So don't try to game the system because you're not going to figure it out, and just make videos for an audience and for a person rather than for an algorithm.
Ah, that's really refreshing because it feels like we're trying to figure out the algorithm, and by the time you
Yeah.
figured it out, it changed again, right?
I
So,
know. It's like I used to have coaches that are like, okay, your title has to be 69 characters and your description has to be this. And, it's still important to optimize your video the best you can. But at the end of the day, spend more time making the video than trying to, figure out just the exact keyword to include.
yeah. No, I'm glad I asked you that. I'm really relieved.
It's like save you a lot of trouble in SEO research, and it's not completely, it's not that important anymore. It still counts for something, but like my YouTube coach is like, don't worry about the keywords for the tags and keywords. Just put in different spellings of your name, so if somebody spells your name wrong, they'll still find you. I'm like, okay.
Mm.
So, so it's, and the other
Yeah,
thing
it's
is
more
that
about you.
with YouTube, it's shifted so much. I mean, maybe keywords were 80% of people finding your video, and now it's like 10%. So, and I even look at my analytics and I say, oh, only a few of these viewers came from search. The vast majority of them came from suggested videos or people finding the video because they're seeking you out and they know, oh yeah, I need video advice or I need to know how to do such and such.
Interesting. Yeah, so it just keeps on changing. So as long
Yeah,
as you put your videos out there, you're doing something
consistency is
right.
really, really important. I
Mm.
mean, YouTube likes consistency and YouTube likes watch time. So people always say, well, should I be doing video shorts or longer videos? And really a combination is best because you're sort of getting the best of both worlds. But YouTube, the algorithm still does reward watch time. So if people start a video with you and then stick with it, YouTube loves that because you're on the channel longer. So that's why I think podcasts are doing so well on YouTube because
Mm.
people tend to stick with the whole podcast rather than just watch 2 minutes of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's good to know.
Hmm.
Cool. Last question. What would you say people who are just starting out and they're
Hmm.
kind of, and maybe they're introverts, what's
Yeah.
the first video that they should do?
I think that the lowest hanging fruit is live video, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. I mean, you can go on and do a video. Maybe you just do it into a Facebook group. But I think live videos have a little bit less of an expectation of perfection. So you can show up, you can make a few mistakes, you can do your ums and ahs or whatever, and people are not going to be that concerned about it. So I think practicing with live video is a really good way to get your feet wet and sort of get, ease your way into videos. And then after you've done a bunch of those and you realize like, oh my God, I didn't die on video, then you can say, now I'm going to go record a video for my homepage and maybe I'll make that more professional.
That's cool. And so in live video, does that mean that people can actually come on live, right?
Yeah, and with like Facebook Live, again, you can say I'm only going to go live to my private group, so maybe you feel a little bit safer starting there
Mhm.
because you know the folks in your group.
Right.
Oftentimes I'll do a video and then on the Facebook setting I'll do only me. So I'm like, okay, it's live, but it's not nobody's seeing it. And then maybe later on I'll say, okay, that wasn't so bad. I'm going to change that view to public. So
Yeah.
even though you recorded it ahead of time, you didn't make it live until afterwards.
Yeah. Love that. Very good. Well, thanks so
Yeah,
much for sharing all your godfatherly
thank
knowledge.
you.
This has been great. Tell people,
Thanks.
please, where they can find you, and I know you have a
Yeah,
free tool for us as well.
everything's at loubortone.com. And I also, like people sometimes have trouble planning their video, what they're going to say. So I have a free video planner at loubortone.com/planner. And that'll just help you sort of map out your video and know, what you're going to say. And you don't have to script it. You don't have to have it all, word for word. Sometimes it just helps to know, okay, I'm going to do my intro and I'm going to do these 3 points and then I have a call to action.
Yeah. I think that's what I do. I think it's really helpful because by the time you're 2/3 in, you don't remember how you wanted to end it. And so it's
I know.
kind of good to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a few bullet
So,
points.
and then there's always, editing. You can always go into Descript and use the AI to take out all your filler words and sound smarter.
That's great. I always ask one last question to all my guests, and that is, what are you grateful for today or this week, Lou?
Wow. At my age, just waking up and but yeah, I mean it's here in the US in February in New England, it's chilly out, but the sun's out and everybody's healthy and it's all good.
Nice, wonderful. Well, let's hope it stays like that.
Yeah,
It's really good to reconnect with you. Thanks so
I
much
know.
for
It's so good to
being
see
on the
you.
show. Good to see
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.